This was the worst idea I've ever had! I'm not joking, everyone. This video series was absolute hell to make, and I sat right here in this very spot only a few days ago and said to myself, oh, all of the Mega Man games are just about half an hour long. I could do all of the games in one big video before Mega Man 11 comes out. But no. I couldn't be any more wrong. After a total of 35 hours of gameplay later, no sleep due to anger and stress, nearly 150 recorded clips and almost shattering 2 controllers, I'm now a broken man. But hey, at least I got some videos out of it, right? But why, pray tell, did it take me that long to finish a collection of mostly dinky NES games? Well, make yourself comfortable, sit back, get yourself a nice hot drink in your Mega Mug, Mugman, and share in my anguish as we all dive into the world of every single classic Mega Man game. Yes, every single one, 1 to 10, kill me! So, Mega Man. He was invented for the NES in 1987 by Capcom, known in Japan as Rockman. His design is iconic. He's never far away from that trusty arm cannon also known as the Mega Buster. His music is always incredible no matter the game. His gameplay is consistent and classic 2D run, jumping and gunning action. And all this led to not only 9 classic sequels so far, but also spin-offs, new franchises, and sequels to those spin-offs and franchises. Oh yeah, and they're also known for being so brutally difficult to the point of making you want to rip your naughty bits off. What you see is what you get with Mega Man, so there isn't that much point going into a lot of depth this early on. They all look basically the same, but with their own little mechanical differences, but many things do remain consistent for the gameplay. Most of the stages you can pick from will last you up to 4 minutes at most if you know what you're doing and don't die. You get new weapons with their own ammo count after each boss you defeat, known as Robot Masters, and those very same Robot Masters are based around a rock, paper, scissors design where you need to experiment with other boss weapons to figure out what weaknesses that boss has against what weapon. And at least back in the 80s and early 90s, most of the longevity with the games came from the constant replaying of each stage to get better at them, using the boss weapons to clear trickier parts, and trial and erroring your way to the finish line by guessing what attack to use on what boss at the end. Not only that, all of the games allow you to pick any stage in any order you want to do, so even though short by design, replayability is a big selling point here. That, and with the final parts of each game, you'll find yourself doing them over and over again because of how bullshitty they can get. Either way, Mega Man 11 was announced pretty recently, and at the time of this video's publishing, it's scheduled to be released on October 2nd, 2018, 8 years after Mega Man 10. And I personally wanted to do a Caddicarus all about Mega Man 11 since I did Mega Man 8 on my channel, the only PS1 entry of the classic Mega Man series. But in order to celebrate 11, I figured I needed to have a little bit more experience with the series, and so decided to pick up both of the legacy collections on Steam and go through every classic game all in one go back to back so that I knew what I was talking about. Now, personally, I've only played Mega Man Powered Up, the Mega Man 1 remake, Mega Man 2, a little bit of 3, and 8, so I am far from an experienced player, but now I'm pretty experienced, I can tell you that much. I'm sorry it took so long for this video to get done, and I'm sorry it wasn't in one big video, but as I'm sure you can imagine, this was very painful. I did not expect it to be this difficult, so here we are with part 1 at least. Without further ado, let's go. Okay, so what's the story here? Dr. Light is a jolly old Santa who, thanks to his genius, develops many different types of robot masters for help in industrial jobs. However, 6 of these start going wrong out of nowhere and start attacking the city of buildings, leading him to suspect that his old jealous rival Dr. Wily is behind the malfunctions in order to get back at him for his success. Turns out he's right, and Dr. Wily actually wants
to take over the world
with these robot masters, as you do, and so Rock, Dr. Light's robot assistant, embedded with a strong sense of right and wrong, offers his body to be converted into Mega Man in order to stop the nefarious Wily once and for all. Nice and simple, but effective. It's the 80s after all, so onto the game itself. Well, to pardon the pun, my relationship with Mega Man 1 started off rocky. I had to learn how Mega Man worked all those years ago, and it wasn't as smooth of a start as I was hoping. I mean, you know you're playing an old game when you have a silent title screen and then jump straight into a stage select with no warning at all, even though for 1987, being able to pick your own stage to do at your own time was kinda groundbreaking. I decided to start with Cutman because I thought he could help me with my throat in case these games ruin my soul, and then the first screen pops up and immediately gives me shit with this smirking piss face constantly attacking me. I then experienced reloading after death right into enemy pathways, areas where I swear it's impossible to not get hit, and slow down. To top it off, I got to the fight with Edward Scissorhead, and he appeared to know exactly where I was going to be every millisecond of the battle until I died in complete misery once I realised I had another 9 games to go after this. So I decided to restart the game, which is when I discovered these really cool art backgrounds unique to every game on the Legacy Collection. Now we look better, I'm expecting the game to give me nonsense, and I'm ready. It was then I discovered that the key to Mega Man 1 for the most part is just going for it. Ignore your instincts and just don't think about what you're doing and you'll find yourself breezing through many of the stages. Mega Man 1 more than anything punishes hesitation and panicking. So get confident, go for it, and you should be golden most of the time. It also doesn't help how enemies can shoot through objects, which really sucks, but luckily enough, so can you. So use that to your advantage whenever you can, since Mega Man for some ungodly reason can't point his Mega Buster arm cannon in any direction other than straight ahead or behind him. This does make some parts unnecessarily tricky for sure, but that's what the boss weapons are used for, so you can't complain that much. Think of the Mega Buster like the whip in classic Castlevania. It does the job just fine, but don't rely on it all the time and try to use sub-weapons as much as you can. So anyway, I beat the first boss Cutman and I get a fantastic victory tune that really makes you feel like you overcame a true hurdle in your quest. Yay, one down and another. How many more to go? The soundtrack itself overall I found alright. Not like Castlevania levels of kick-ass, but for the late 80s it's great enough for the run and gun action and extremely catchy and memorable. The visuals aren't as meticulous and detailed as Castlevania either, and it may be a little too simplistic and empty for most, but it works with the faster paced nature of Mega Man. Either way, the game is at least nice and colourful enough, and the anime-styled aesthetic mixed with the choppy, blocky 8-bit pixels I actually really liked. It goes together really well, and Capcom seemed to like it too, since this style of Mega Man, these sprites especially, would be reused in every future game no matter how more detailed the backgrounds and bosses would get. I mean, look at Mega Man, he's pretty adorable as far as mascot characters go. Simplistic visuals don't mean simplistic gameplay though, because as far as the run and gun action is concerned, this is a standard 8-bit tough as nails platform with all the old school archaic horse waste to keep you on your toes. Or to just kill you for no reason at all. Thanks so much for that game. There are so many jumps that give you no room for error, with ceilings blocking your head unless you hit jump at the pixel perfect moment just before you fall off the edge. The knockback can be really unforgiving, some enemies throw so much bull at you that I'm convinced there's nothing you can do. The timing of the disappearing block segments are ridiculously precise and also include trick blocks to throw you off, and your fall speed is so damn fast. Look at this. Mega Man plummets downwards faster than an elephant in a trapeze. It's almost like he just heard that hell was hiding at the bottom of the screen and thinks, yep, sign me up! I also just noticed a conspicuous lump on this drawing of Mega Man in the background of the game. This is a little distracting, I won't lie, but at least he doesn't look like... All of this overly difficult nonsense though is to be expected, seeing as that this is a very short game, the shortest of the series easily. And the replayability aspect comes from what I said earlier, getting more weapons, tackling stages with those weapons to make things easier, and figuring out each Robot Master's weakness until you win the game. And to give Mega Man 1 credit, you can feasibly guess what each weapon will be effective for each robot on the character select screen without even jumping into a stage for the sake of even more trial and error on top of what's already here. The weaknesses are really creative as well and not blindingly obvious. Cutman's weapon can cut electric wires, for instance. Bombs are usually used for blowing up rocks while mining. You can use fire to light the fuse of a bomb, etc. And even cooler, if you just so happen to have an ability on you, you can replay certain stages with those same powers to unlock additional routes for more optional goodies. Not just health and weapon ammo, but also the beam, the most useful item in the game by far.
Yeah, get stuffed, flying platform power! Get stuffed right in your stuffy little stuffed up!
Oh, one thing I really didn't appreciate though is at the final stage when going through Wily's fortress, because, well, you need the beam here to get through, so no matter what predicament you find yourself in, you have to go back to Elecman's stage and find the damn thing. Which, unfortunately, I had to do. I mean, at least with finding the Robot Master's weaknesses, you can actually kill them all with the Mega Buster, just in case you got that far and don't want to replay the stage again with the correct power-up. But here, the power-up isn't a cool bonus like it should be for moments like this. It's a necessity and a bit of a prick move when it appears to be an optional item off the beaten path. But I suppose you're probably game over at this point anyway, meaning you'll have no excuse but to go back, so thanks game either way. Make sure you also don't change weapons during climbing a ladder because you'll fall, that's really nice, and don't let a single pixel of your body touch any spikes. Not a pixel. And not that pixels either, it's shit! And there's a lot of spikes in this game, so get used to it. Oh, and by the way, if you die, you lose a life, sure, and get your health back to full, sure, but you don't get your weapon energy back. So in many cases, especially against certain Robot Masters, if you waste all the weapon ammo, you might as well restart anyway. Oh, and sometimes the game does stuff like this. What in the holy mother of bitch trees happened there? I'm also not the biggest fan of Mega Man's traction in this game. For some reason, he slips all over the place when he comes to a stop, making some singular block platforming unnecessarily painful. And speaking of painful, how about this bit that sees you going over bottomless pits with platforms that randomly shoot at you with no pattern while flying penguins are being thrown at you? I was really lucky enough to get through this part on my second try, but Christ on a bike, they sold this torture device to kids in the 80s. If it weren't for how huge and overpowered Elecman's weapon is, many of these areas would be the end of me before even reaching the second game, but yeah, I do love this weapon. It just destroys everything and fires up and down and ahead. I also love those moments where the game rewards those who pay attention, like when you're dropping down here and you can steer yourself to grab a load of goodies if you're attentive enough to this part over here. And this part in Gutsman's stage with all the dropping rail platforms, many people's most hated bit, but I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a drummer. But the rhythm and timing for this part I really didn't find that tricky. I mean, I died a few times for sure, but I didn't find it that difficult. It's quite a clever setup, actually.
Oh! And you can slide up ladders.
Worst boss in the game, though? Fireman. Easily.
You aren't even a robot! You're an occupation! I hate you, fireman! Sam!
His pattern makes absolutely no sense. Look at this. It's too fast, impossible to dodge or predict, and he does so much damage. Oh, and the final part of this game can keel over and never wake up for all I care, even though it is brilliant how Dr. Wily bobs his eyebrows. Oh, and how about that yellow bloody devil? This guy hits like a truck, has an extremely intricate and tricky to read and react attack pattern as he morphs from one end of the screen to the other, and some people, like Some Call Me Johnny, recommend using the Elecman pause glitch trick to score multiple hits on him before he has another chance to do that stupid attack sequence again.
But I didn't.
Oh yes, see this? I kicked this stupid pillock right in the nuts without using the trick at all, and I honestly found the challenge of learning the pattern extremely rewarding. Kind of like that part in Gutsman stage, I didn't think this was too bad after a few tries. I mean, it's still difficult, but not too bad. And if you get past all of this, get ready for more wily goodness with this boss, which I began with assuming the weakness was Gutsman's weapon since there were blocks here that you could throw at the boss, which it turned out to be the weakness. That's great, but if you do that at the start of the fight, you've lost. Because that means you can't jump over the thing while it moves around the arena unless you keep the blocks there. Oh, and by the way, the blocks don't respawn if you die, so just game over and start again. And once you even know all of this, it isn't too bad once again, but getting this far to only have the game bitch slap you is not fair at all. Even then, it's impossible to predict which end of the screen these things appear from, and therefore which end of the screen you should be on in order to
12 lords are leaping
over it. And then you have a gauntlet rematch with every single Robot Master so far, which every game after this will do, so you would better remember the weaknesses and still have ammo left over, otherwise you will start all over again. If a little bit of luck is on your side though, get ready for Wily himself. And funnily enough, despite being 2 phases, he's one of the easier bosses in the game, especially compared to what you've just been through. At this point, you blow him up, Wily begs for forgiveness, and Mega Man does the truly heroic thing and leaves him there. You're an idiot. So obviously Wily's gonna come back and give us a sequel, but before we get there, can I just mention something? Overall, Mega Man 1 is alright. For a late 80s NES platformer and the first of a series, it's good enough, but the only reason I say that is because of the save feature that's present on the Legacy Collection. Without that, with all of the trial and error bullshit the game expects you to deal with, Capcom wanted you to do most of the game with 3 tries before a game over and needing to begin an entire stage all over again. If I had that misfortune, I wouldn't have gone any further with the game after Wily Stage 1, it gets that difficult. There's just too much guesswork and luck-based progression for me to say this is where you start if you want to get into Mega Man. It's the first of the series, and hot damn does it feel like it.
But after all of this, and Mega Man just leaving Wily at the scene of his own crime, this leads us on to Mega Man 2, what many people consider to be the best game in the series.
In this game, Dr. Wily has returned, which is what happens when you run away, and he decides instead of relying on working robots
to take over the world,
he's going to create his own instead to combat Mega Man, and jumps up from 6 to 8. Much simpler plot this time around for sure, but that doesn't matter because Mega Man 2 is fantastic. For a second game, it does a ton brilliantly. It isn't my personal favourite, but the jumping quality is definitely the most noticeable. Mega Man 2 is the same basic game as 1, but improved, well, practically everywhere, especially in the presentation. For an 80s NES game, the opening cutscene is completely epic, along with a little bit of story text. The soundtrack is probably the best in the whole series too, with its catchy, energetic and memorable melodies weaving in between hardcore beats and bass lines. And you can see how much more cool the game looks just from the improved animations and backgrounds and sprites for enemies and bosses alike. Just check out this transitional piece when you get new boss weapons. You even get to see Dr. Wily's fortress, and honestly, I get that they had a good base work to improve from Mega Man 1, but it feels like this is the proper start to the series. Well, I mean, they could have fixed the slippery feet, but what are you gonna do? Unlike 1, where playing with the save states is the only way I recommend you play the game. 2, on the other hand, is totally doable here just playing regularly because of how much fairer and tightly designed it is, and not just with the addition of collectible energy tanks that you can choose to use at the best points when at the end of a long stretch to get all of your health back. They've been a staple to the series ever since, and for good reason. They're incredible. There's no instances of off-screen damage or kills, well, except with Bubble Man's stage. You aren't swarmed with enemies at any point, and the bosses are all much easier to read and predict with their added animations, but still challenging. And that's the key with Mega Man 2. It's easier than 1, but still quite challenging. The balance is brilliant, and every death here more or less feels like my fault. The game is designed not only better visually, but that same level of quality can be seen with different and unique platforming and enemy management challenges for each stage. There's lots of special one-off set pieces and different things to test you, like how fast you can read where you should drop down before dying, or how hard you should push the jump button to get over water obstacles without touching the one-hit kill spikes, all while dealing with still tricky but way more manageable groups of enemies. There's a bit more thought here than the constant onslaught of running and jumping than in 1, and a lot more tests of multitasking and managing multiple kinds of enemies while platforming, but the balance is the best bit of Mega Man 2. It's just right. You either have tricky, powerful enemies with little platforming hazards, or high platforming hazards with easier enemies to deal with, and there's more variety than 1 to boot. The weapons from bosses are also not only cooler to look at, but a hell of a lot more useful than 1 too, and all perform entirely differently depending on each situation in the stage, which is perfect for replays because this game is short once again, but the way all the levels are designed, especially Crash Man's with all the ladders and dead ends, means that with the correct weapons you can pick up even more stuff to keep your run going. And after some Robot Master stages, you even get a chance to unlock some of Dr. Light's environmental gadgets like Item 1, Item 2, and Item 3. I guess the guy in charge of naming things died the day before. And these give you all brand new ways to traverse levels, skip ridiculous parts of the game, and potentially give you more lives and E-tanks to keep your run going. For an NES game without any save states, it's been very well thought out to be as accessible to new players as possible, as well as difficult to let you know that you're still playing a Mega Man game without you feeling like you should pour salt into your eyes and wring your own neck. And this is alongside all the cool features of the original game, like Robot Master weaknesses, which have all yet again creative rock, paper, scissors mechanics. Metal blades can cut through wood, for instance, and even pop bubbles. It makes sense to use something that stops time against something that's quick, and gusts of air could push something towards a crash. And everyone knows that bubbles can destroy heat. Okay, that's a stretch. Couldn't tell you how Airman is weak against leaves though, but I really don't care because...
Jesus, he died quickly! Oh no, not the real Jesus. I heard that was very slow.
The metal blades though, my god, possible contender for best boss weapon in the series. They are totally incredible. They fire very quickly, have tons of ammo, and allow you to fire in multiple directions, which means the Mega Buster is basically obsolete once you get it. Although why Mega Man can now move his own firing arm in 8 directions while throwing heavy metal saw blades and can't while spitting out poxy pricking lemons, I have no idea.
But more importantly, you can still slide up ladders.
Health is more readily available, but it's balanced within the more difficult moments. Instead of health being something that only appears at midnight during a blood moon on the 3rd leap year of the century, like in 1, 2 sees health almost like a trade-off for when you take damage during a more intense moment. Unless you fall down a pit or touch spikes, of course. For example, if you don't have the means to attack the rabbit here in Woodman stage because Mega Man's arm is so muscly he can't move it towards his own feet from fiddling with himself too much, it's fine because you can get complimentary insurance. And considering all the bottomless pits and dozens of tiny birds that can either drain your health or push you into your doom in Airman stage, they tend to drop a lot of ammo and health to apologise. To be fair though, this might be because I went with the normal difficulty instead of harder, or the fact that the metal blades are just so good that they make me want to dry hump the nearest inanimate object. But overall, Mega Man 2 is just more fun, and even Wily is still having the time of his life. Wily Fortress 1 begins and immediately kicks ass with the best song in the entire classic series if you ask me. It just sounds so good. This is all followed up with classic Mega Man 2 gameplay. But then there's another boss much later on that can seriously do one. He has only one weakness, and even with a full energy bar of those bombs that you need to beat it, you can only still just about do it. If you die here after firing one bomb, you can't get any more ammo on this retry, meaning that you have lost the game. And equally, if you miss one shot, you have lost. Why this is here, I have no idea. It isn't challenging, isn't fair, and a serious flick in the gents for making it this far into such a tough but fair game, and stuff like this ruins the final run of Mega Man 2 towards Wily. It certainly has its highlights though, like the derpy bloody dragon that appears out of thin air to give you not only a chase sequence platforming challenge, but then a not too tricky bottomless pit boss. The only thing ruining it for me being the seizure, 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 seizure. Then there's another boss similar to the bubble machine thing from 1, but the machines are smaller, easier to dodge, and it's just a better fight overall that doesn't rely on guesswork. And the next stage is more standard great Mega Man 2 gameplay with added tension, mixing water physics with funneling and instant death spikes.
Which I did all at my first time, don't judge me.
And then one of Dr. Wily's greatest inventions comes in, ready to end your life. Yeah, he's really as pathetic and easy as he looks. Which is more than I can say for the final Wily boss, at least the second form. The first form isn't too bad, but the second form, jeez. No matter what I tried, no matter what I did, jumping over the attacks or running underneath, I always got hit. If it weren't for the save states, I would have given up here too. Seriously, it feels like the same people from Mega Man 1 just appeared out of nowhere to design the final parts of this game with the stupid attack patterns, and it ruins the consistently great journey as far as I'm concerned. But once you finally do it, Dr. Wily then transforms into an alien. What? And it doesn't stop there, it gets even weirder. He's weak to bubbles. Bubbles!
Cheeky monkey bridge.
And once that thing is beaten, it turns out that Dr. Wily was definitely not in Kansas anymore. And just when things couldn't get any weirder, Mega Man gets Wily to beg for forgiveness again, and then he leaves. With leaves. Why Mega Man's done this again, I have no idea. And what is with this somber walk through the seasons? I mean, is he sad that he forgot to arrest the Doctor again?
Well, I guess he must feel a little bit stupid, because as to be expected, Mega Man 3 then happened. All I can hope for is that Fishman returns to make the third game just as good.
Well, I guess after the epicness of 2, Capcom decided not to bother trying to top it straight away, so we don't even start with an opening cutscene or an interesting title screen. A little disappointing, but at least the music is pretty calm yet grand to let you know what's about to take place once you hit that start button.
Oh shit!
Despite no story explanation at all within the game though, what's going on now is that Dr. Light and Dr. Wily are now working together, yeah right, in order to create a peacekeeping robot known as Gamma, until 8 new robot masters suddenly go haywire and steal the crystals needed to power the thing. I wonder why that is. So we need to stop the masters and stop whoever is intercepting this whole shindig, including the new character known as Breakman, who keeps appearing throughout the game to stop Mega Man on his journey. And so now we've hit start, what do we do?
Oh Jesus, Mega Man is one of the bosses! He's Dr. Wily!
And speaking of Wily, I think he got a little bit too carried away when he recruited Hardman. Hardman. In fact, there isn't only Hardman, but Snake Man too. What is this game trying to tell me? This game is basically the same as Mega Man 2, but with a few alterations and additions. First of all, Mega Man doesn't slip around anymore like he's wearing special buttered shoes, which makes platforming a lot easier.
But he's still able to slide up ladders.
But it's not all sunshine and dandelion farts though, because even though the visual detail from enemies and environments is a lot busier and prettier than 1 and 2 combined, I think this is heavily affecting how the game actually performs. I mean, it could be the Steam port in the Legacy Collection, but I got main menu glitches, stuttering side-scrolling that was pretty last minute with showing me threats, and absolutely insane slowdown that made many parts of the game unplayable, even some of the easier sections just because of the inputs not registering during the slowdown. The boss weapons too are also not that interesting to me, and the logic for what weaknesses work with which bosses are stretched so thin it's kind of funny. Hardman's weakness is funnily enough not a special guillotine weapon, but instead a magnet missile. I mean, is it because he's made out of metal? But lots of things are hard, not just metal, it could be anything. And the Search Snake weapon can help you search for Gemini Man and his clones, I guess? But using a hard knuckle weapon on a spinning top, or using a top weapon on a Shadow Man, or a shadow weapon on Sparks? I get that they need to make the Robot Masters more unique now the main elements have been taken up, but it's a little jarring, and what really doesn't help is the boss fights going down heavily in quality from 2, since they're more interested in spamming bullshit at you constantly instead of providing a fair fight with learnable attack animations and styles. Anyway, I chose Top Man as my first Robot Master because he just looks hilarious, and I decided to test out the new ability which I got from him, which is completely crap. After which I then hear a delightful little whistle. And then all of a sudden,
A crazy red bastard man appears and jumps all over the place! face!
And this is the pre-mentioned Breakman, a recurring mini-boss throughout the game, and one that in every single fight does the exact same thing. He jumps around, doesn't run, and shoots. And that is it. Why the hell he's part of the game, I don't know, but he's easy enough at least to make you feel good for finishing him off. Another addition to Mega Man 3 is his slide ability, and this not only leads to a few more alternate paths and interesting level challenges, but I love how frigging terrified Mega Man looks whenever he does it.
Oh my god!
It looks a little bit like Hardman found his way up Mega Man's bottom. You also have access to a new faithful dog companion known as Rush, not only adorable, but useful as heck too. There's Rush Coil for springing up towards higher platforms, Rush Jet for flying gracefully over any kind of terrain, and Rush Marine for underwater traversal. Which I never found, so I never used. Shut up. Like the slide ability, it opens up more interesting level parts and optional goodies that are hidden away, but acts a lot more like the items from Mega Man 2 in terms of usefulness in totally optional situations as a bonus to make them easier. Mega Man 3 may feel a little like 2 in many areas, but I found that 3 had a much higher focus on more animated and unpredictable attacks from enemies to go with the new visuals, and this does lead to pretty good non-rushing combat segments where you need to stop and think a lot more about what you're doing before continuing, which I do like, don't get me wrong, but I don't prefer it over the balance of combat and speedy platforming from the last game, and 3 goes a little bit too crazy on the targets that are way too small to hit. Christ, these things are annoying. And enemies like this are all over the damn place, which aren't fun to avoid or fight at all, just a health draining and knockbacking nuisance. In fact, these enemies were the only time that the topspin attack was even vaguely useful. It's not even useful on the airborne enemies since it knocks you back whenever you use it, causing more problems than necessary. And just you try using it as the weakness against Shadow Man. It may do a lot of damage, but the amount of times I tried to hit him without getting hit myself and taking off chunks of damage were immeasurable. What am I doing wrong here? In fact, his whole stage can blow off for all I care. It's full of those stupid enemies that I'm convinced your bullets go straight through, and there's this part here where I swear it's impossible to get by without taking a hit, but in order to get past, make sure you take the hit without being too close to the edge or else...
Oh dear, you funky down the hole.
And what about this here in Snake Man stage? Hey, what's all that about? The game also brings back those lovely moments of Mega Man 1 insta-death punishments while piling lots of enemies onto you. As far as I'm concerned, this game is the best of Mega Man 2 mixed with the worst of Mega Man 1 with a sprinkling of no slippery feet, sliding, and the rush abilities. I mean, it's nice to get E-Tanks back and everything, but with so many more insta-death scenarios and enemy ganging, it's hard to appreciate them, and it makes you question why they even bothered having them back except for the run to the final parts of the game. And even when you have all the weapons at your disposal, their utility in the stages is very questionable, and I didn't find many of them that useful at all. The Searching Snake is alright, it tracks every solid ground surface and is good for the smaller enemies, as are the Ninja Stars. They're like the Metal Blades, but much slower and you can fire any one at a time, so not that great really actually. The Hard Knuckle is powerful, but far too slow to be that reliable. The Gemini Laser is powerful, yes, but not only has barely any ammo, but if it misses a target, it bounces all over the damn screen and won't let you pause, change weapons, or even fire another laser until it vanishes. It's completely useless. The Spark only really stuns enemies and not much else. There are magnets that track enemies up to a point but then decide to just fly off screen if the target moves even an inch off of the beaten path. And the Needles are just a weaker version of the Mega Buster that don't really affect everything, so why the toss would you ever consider using it? And as far as the endgame goes, you don't fight Dr. Wily immediately. No, instead you go through 4 of the stages you just did all over again, except way more difficult and with much harder elements of Mega Man 2 thrown in for the sake of the team knowing that that game was much better. Then you had to fight the Dark Robot Master thing, which is a culmination of mixed powers from older Robot Masters, which, by the way, not only means you have to guess their weaknesses with Mega Man 3 weapon logic, causing me to die before even figuring out what weapon to use, but also, this hybrid monstrosity moves faster, hits harder, and I swear to the Lord can read your mind with where you plan to run to, jump, and attack. Like Mega Man 1, if you didn't have the save feature, I don't know how you're supposed to enjoy this game that much. I mean, check out this bit in the Airman Hybrid stage. If you don't have enough rush jet power, or God forbid, get to the end of this trek and lose, that's it, you're done, because the ammo pickups you need to keep flying through this part don't respawn. What's the point of all of this? And the slowdown, my bleeding pus hole, the slowdown. It screws up your timing with these trapdoor platforms so much. If you don't jump the very second you land on these things, you will fall. So good luck with the inputs not registering on these bits. I understand that for a third game they probably wanted to make it a bit longer, but this was not the way to do it if you ask me, especially considering the Wily stages are probably the easiest in the whole game, and those are the final stages. I mean, they're still challenging, don't get me wrong, but as some kind of twisted apology, you're given 4 times the amount of E-Tanks you've ever had in any game so far, and compared to that Robot Master Master hybrid thing, it seems backwards to stick this part here. Well, I mean, you still have to refight all the original Robot Masters again in case all that feces before wasn't enough for you, but then you go to a pretty decent yet easy fight against the mad old Doctor himself, which leads you to finally take down Dr. Wily, and then okay, do you know what? Fair enough. I actually didn't see that coming. That's kind of cute. And just when everything was going hunky-sodding dory and more like Mega Man 2, the game suddenly remembers,
oh yeah, I'm Mega Man 3!
and gives you another boss that can only be attacked by upwards attacks, so I hope you have enough ammo for what you need, otherwise game over. And even if you do have the ammo, oops, one-hit kill from off-screen. Did you also know that this was the peacekeeping robot Dr. Light and Wily was supposed to make, and what a shock, Dr. Wily made it evil
to take over the world.
You finally take down the boss after tons of trial and error and with absolutely no indication that nearly every weapon you have bounces off the last boss, leading me to waste tons of ammo and time. After all of this, Wily isn't apprehended again, but his fortress crumbles and supposedly kills him. And so before Mega Man can think, it turns out the crazy red jumping bastard comes in to save the day because his real name is Proto Man and is actually Mega Man's brother. Okay, whatever. And by the way, this guy is a noob.
This may be an unpopular opinion to have, but I think Mega Man 3 personally is my least favourite of the series so far. I mean, it's not terrible, it's not even that bad of a game, all things considered, but talk about a messy sequel. It's full of trial and error, unplayable slowdown, is extended for no particular reason with pointlessly hard additional bosses, and once again, if it weren't for the save feature, I don't know how one is supposed to enjoy it. We've taken a major step back to Mega Man 1 design with 3, but hopefully, Mega Man 4 will curb my appetite.
So hey, this game starts with a cutscene, alrighty, great start, and it gives you a little backstory. And wouldn't you know, especially for 8-bit, it's pretty damn beautiful. The animation, the colour choices, it's minimalistic, but almost like a moving comic book.
Do you know what else is beautiful though? Sliding up ladders.
The story this time involves a Russian scientist known as Dr. Cossack, and with Wily supposedly dead, this guy is now the next in line
to take over the world.
8 Robot Masters, fortress stages, same shtick, same dead expression, different paint job. Let's move on. We begin the game at Dustman stage, jump over this pit, and but after Dustman bites the dust, we then get another badass addition that shows off how much more went into the presentation. Along with the cutscenes, this brief and simple transition when grabbing new weapons is slick as cold mozzarella, and I'm already enjoying this a lot more than 3. Slowdown is also rare, yes, and that's with this much more detail, which also goes hand in hand with more environmental platforming obstacles to keep things more interesting along with the new Robot Masters. Do you want to go to a skeleton world or an Egyptian temple? That's so kick-ass. And the level design also takes a lot more risks with alternate routes for optional goodies, and despite the same controls, abilities and rush gadgets from 3, you also get one of Mega Man's best new abilities, a charge shot to his Mega Buster. This thing saved my sorry face plenty of times, fully charging and keeping a big old shot for mini-bosses, bigger enemies and rows of smaller enemies alike makes this one of the best additions for sure, and it's a good alternative to rapid firing if you prefer to wait for a more accurate shot. But the game still has its moments of bollock like in Drillman stage, with these constantly respawning rocks above bottomless pits with respawning things right here, and many moments of making a jump before... yeah, that happens, but the game overall feels like a decent balance between 2's design and 3's mechanics for me to say I enjoyed it a ton more. This does mean though that the slide ability isn't really used within the level design all that much, but instead is an extension to Mega Man's movement, so it's used more like a fantastic dodge maneuver for many obstacles and attacks, and I can't imagine playing the game without it. This also means that it goes back to 2's set-piece design, giving you more segments of platforming and enemy type challenges instead of multiple things going on all at once while being attacked all the time. It's all much more reasonable, and the balance of difficulty is more in favour of either trickier enemies or trickier platforming, never both of them together clashing and causing you hours of salty tears. Just in case things get a little tricky for you though, just pop an E-tank and you'll be all set.
Well, if you don't mind losing your hearing, that is. What?
The bosses are probably the most reasonably designed in the series so far as well. There's no spamming here and instead nothing but actual readable and reactionary attack patterns. But as far as Robot Master weaknesses go, well, the logic has completely thrown itself out the window. Want to use a ring boomerang against a dust man? Why not? But the weapons themselves are all once again unique and have special uses in specific situations. The skull shield is like the leaf shield in Mega Man 2, but actually lets you run and jump at the cost of only 1 hit protection, which is great for falling or flying obstacles, especially over pits. Dustman Man's attack, and no, that's not a horror movie, is very powerful and splits into 4 pieces. Dive Man's missiles track everything at the cost of less ammo. The drill is like a fully charged Mega Buster shot on the fly. The Pharaoh thing can fire diagonally upwards. The ring is great too, since it not only slices through enemies but also comes back to you like the Shadow Blade in 3. The Bright attack freezes everything on screen around you for a few seconds, and the Toad attack is like a mini screen nuke. They aren't my favourite weapons so far, but it's a big step up from 3 if you ask me, as are the final stages, which are tough yet once again fair. The endgame though isn't against Wily, but the Russian scientist Dr. Cossack instead.
Russian scientist Dr. Cossack? I mean, come on, seriously? Where's the Spanish scientist Dr. Flamenco?
And his tower is very, well, I think he was a big fan of Hardman too. And this is the same structure as 2, with a few more bosses to beat down before the final boss. And as we climb higher up Cossack Tower, we finally get to the big man himself, who isn't massively difficult, but just as you're about to win, his daughter appears out of nowhere. Appearing out of nowhere seems to be a running theme in Mega Man, along with the crazy red jumping bastard, who both demand that we stop fighting, since Wily, surprise surprise, was the bad guy all along, holding Cossack at hostage. So off we go to stop Wily once again, and his bosses aren't too tricky either, except his final phase when he can just teleport on top of you from the dark. After which Mega Man wins, doesn't arrest Wily again, meaning that he escapes, and the game ends. Brilliant. Overall, Mega Man 4 is more of what I was looking for after Mega Man 2, to be honest. It has the mechanics of 3, the design of 2, but it's starting to get a little bit been there, done that for it to massively stand out. It's still a great entry though, and another one I recommend you play. The fact that you don't need to rely on save states again like in 1 and 3 says a lot as well.
Before we conclude Mega Man 4 though, can we just take a step back and relax, take some deep breaths, have a moment of reflection and peace, as I dedicate a song to one of the greatest bosses in video game history, Toad Man. And I will always love you. I will always love you.
The intro cutscene here reveals that Proto Man, Mega Man's older brother, despite turning back to the good side, is now a bad guy again. Make your mind up! And he's kidnapped his own creator, Dr. Light, and is rallying together, take a guess, 8 robot masters to help out, take a guess, Dr. Wily, in order for him
To take over the world.
And the very first thing I noticed was the animation for charge shots looking a lot better. It's more flashy and prominent and feels a lot better to use. It's a lot more and a lot less piffle. As for the game itself is concerned, it's basically the same as 4, but balanced to be way more like 2, with the least amount of bullshit in the series so far, and with even more cool ideas to help keep things fresh for 5 games in. You can slide, you can charge shot, you've got rush gadgets, but also get new level ideas entirely, which is the least I can expect this far in, but it's still nice to see, especially playing all of these games back to back.
And I don't ever recommend you do that.
Gravity Man stage I loved for how different it felt compared to any other Mega Man stage, with the flipping around to the top and bottom of the stage, but unlike most games, the control style actually changes around the gravity instead of remaining the same just for the sake of being confusing. If you want Mega Man to move to the right, you press right if you're at the top or the bottom of the screen. No mirroring in sight just because Mega Man is upside down. And the following Robot Master battle using this mechanic isn't massively difficult at all, but due to his weakness being a shield weapon, trying to position yourself near him while dodging his attacks but not collide entirely with him as the gravity flips over was something really brand new and memorable. And the run up to Proto Man's boss is another great idea. It's very short, yeah, but making the whole stage come down yourself by destroying blocks and not getting crushed, that's not been done before. The weapons themselves are slightly running out of ideas though, which isn't great, but the building of each stage meant that they didn't need to make things unnecessarily difficult and that you feel like you need to rely on the power-ups, which goes to show a lot about the solid level design on display. The stars are the same as the skulls from 4, the water is the same as the snake from 4 but only runs down surfaces and not up, which has its uses but overall isn't as cool. The star arrow thing is basically the hard knuckle, and no, riding it isn't that useful and more dangerous over anything, especially with Rush Jet making a return. The charge kick isn't bad actually, especially for tiny enemies. The napalm bombs are really powerful but really low range, and being able to flip gravity yourself is a brilliant little power-up, as is the Gyro Man power that allows you to fire in front or upwards with a lot of ammo. It's kind of similar to the Metal Blades in 2, but not as exploitable and much more balanced around the level design to still keep it challenging. I mean, yeah, I still prefer the Metal Blades because of how overpowered they are, but in terms of keeping things just that little bit more tense, this is a great compromise, and in fact, I say they're running out of ideas, but the fact that so many of them are close if not identical to 4 isn't a bad thing at all. They work when they need to perfectly, but just don't seem to be as creative or imaginative as they once were. And at this point, I've only just noticed that Mega Man has a serious case of silly feet syndrome. Also, not only does he look totally horrified when sliding, but equally looks horrified while jumping. What is wrong with this guy's face?
More important than anything, though, is that you can still
Slide up ladders. Okay, sorry, I'm not doing that joke anymore. You can always milk it too much, can't you? Milk. Throughout each stage, we also have a brand new collectible rewarding not only the keen eye, but brave players who want to go out of their way to risk getting them. And by finding all of them to spell Mega Man 5, you'll discover the risk is entirely worth it because you get the brilliant robot bird companion Beat, who automatically follows around you and attacks any enemy or projectile until they're dead. This is a fantastic reward and a great incentive to step out of your comfort zone while looking for them. Or, in case you miss one, it's definitely worth giving up a life in order to try grabbing it again, or replaying the stage. Mega Man 5 also introduces new tanks to refill every weapon ammo and your own health, but the game only allows you to carry one at a time to keep it balanced and make you consider if it's worth using now or later, just in case another one pops up later and you can't carry it. And stepping back, the entire level design and challenges in each stage is as close to 2 as it can be, but with added challenges built around fast time dodging with the slide, the charge shot and rush gadgets, the terrific soundtrack. This all makes 5 my favourite entry so far. Even the tank distribution is just right. The power-ups are useful but not too overpowered. This is just a great game here. I mean, it does still have its moments, like at the start of Wily Fortress and not having a clue that you shouldn't drop from this side. Come on, that's really terrible. But that's the only proper instance of bull I can think of from the top of my head compared to the previous games. You even get Mega Man's first vehicle segment here. How fantastic is this? I mean, it's not exactly difficult or anything, but it looks and feels great and even has a boss battle. The ending also sees you climbing Proto Man's tower to fight more tricky and unique bosses. Well, I mean, some are tricky and some are completely pathetic, but this guy was a total crumbing bastard because he constantly loves to freeze you until you get him stuck in the corner, that is. Plot-wise, we then discover that the Proto Man that kidnapped Dr. Light was fake all along. The real Proto Man comes in to save us, and then a fight to the end with Dr. Wily occurs once again. What a surprise. Come if you dare. Ooh, don't worry, I will. With the help of Hard Man.
And I actually thought these ending segments were some of the best in Mega Man.
How many bastarding castles does this guy have?
The stages themselves are top stuff, and the bosses are once again not the hardest in the world, but very unique and interesting instead of the simple run, dodge and shoot right affairs we've seen so far. The worm thing here was probably my favourite because you have to attack it so that it can attack you, but then you use its own attack to get higher ground and then attack it back while avoiding aerial attacks. It's really cool stuff. As for the ending Wily bosses though, they are probably the easiest we've had to deal with so far, with the final form being a much slower version of Mega Man 4, in the dark, only hittable for a second and with lots of lasers to avoid, but with Beat on your side it becomes a battle of patience more than anything else. After all this, the ending sees Wily running away like a little bitch and Mega Man saving Dr. Light. But oh no, the castle starts crumbling yet again, so Mega Man can't catch Wily this time and holds the ruins up to save Dr. Light. Wily then decides he's Michael Jackson for a second, and then Proto Man jumps in once again to rescue us, letting Wily escape again and leaving us open for Mega Man 6. Mega Man Balboa.
Before we get to that one though, I have to show you how lovely it is if you decide to use one of those special tanks that refills absolutely everything.
Oh boy, so it appears as though everything has gone a lot less doom and gloom despite the fact Wily is loose again. This game is about a rigged robot fighting tournament with a sponsor known as Mr. X. What, you mean Dr. Wily? Who's taken all the ticket money and stuff in order to fund his goal to reprogram 8 Robot Masters and, you guessed it,
Take over the world.
he says he's been ordering Wily around this entire time, but come the bloody hell on, I haven't seen a disguise that unconvincing since my great-granddad disguised himself as a corpse to get out of my 5th birthday party.
Oh wait, that was real.
Mega Man 6, I can't add much more onto what I said about 5. It's more or less the same game, but with once again slight tweaks and just not as good as 5 if you ask me, which for 6 games in really struggled to leave any kind of impact on me, but that could be from marathoning all of them back to back. Presentation wise though, I think this looks the best of the bunch with the same visual fidelity as 5, but with way more creative themes. Medieval stage, Greek stage, glistening sun-kissed desert stage, these are brilliant. And this is probably my favourite screen of classic Mega Man so far. It looks so wonderful for 8-bit. You even have an Arabian level theme with lots of oil and a flame man robot master that wears a turban. Oh dear.
Is this as insensitive as Oil Man in Mega Man Powered Up though?
Don't you got a place near your house for fill-ups?
I'll let you be the judge of that because I ain't touching that subject with a 50-foot hard man.
Once again, I'm saying that a lot, aren't I? The soundtrack is great, the controls and Mega Man's moves are the same, the bosses are all challenging yet not like 3 with uncontrollable spamming, and their patterns feel good to nail, and there's a few new obstacles added in here like sticky oil that's safe to move in if a little rigid, but if fire comes near it, it'll kill you instantly, so making sure you kill enemies before that happens is vital to keep the stage a little easier. There's also a few twists on the existing mechanics, like with Rush. Instead of him acting as a separate interactable gadget, he now combines into you to give you permanent upgrades while they're equipped with no ammo but their own charge meter that either comes back after a short period of time or lets you know when it's ready for a powerful attack.
And this little twist is enough of a reason for me to recommend giving this one a look, despite how identical it is to 4 and 5, and change the way you approach stages in a surprising amount of ways. You can choose to tank damage but give a lot back in the power suit at the cost of low range, and the Rush Jet next to the Metal Blade in Mega Man 2 is probably my favourite ability in the entire classic series. It isn't a weapon, but instead a literal lifesaver and a fantastic secret grabber. You can't slide or charge shot while it's on, but that's a small price to pay for the temporary flight and boosted floating jump. It's so damn good to use, and it doesn't last as long as the Rush Jet, but really doesn't need to. It's amazing enough as it is. As far as the other boss weapons go though, I mean, I must be honest, I can't say anything about any of them for the first time so far. They are either copies of previous weapons or are outright just different versions of the Mega Buster. They are all majorly disappointing, except the spread shot blizzard attack. Not since 3 have I felt like this actually, but I do appreciate the game actually showing you what each weapon does after you beat the boss for it, a lovely detail. And for some stages, instead of a dark patch on the main menu to signify you beat it, you get Mega Man's face there instead, almost as if to say, "Yay, I did it!" But I mean, this is basically the exact same game in enemy and platform design as 4 and 5, which is, well, fine, but not as good as either of them, so my feelings overall are meh?
Meh.
This could be seen as an extension to 5, I guess, and the Rush Jet adapter alone is enough to make me say I enjoyed it, but like, you don't even have the collectible letters for that extra sense of rewarding exploration and getting past treacherous situations like what 5 does. To get beat, you just find alternate exits to some of the stages. Even the run through Mr. X's lair is full of objects and bosses that just aren't all that new or surprising, especially in the last few bosses on the home stretch. They just keep on getting easier, I swear it. And in a plot twist that should shock absolutely nobody, Dr. Wily is the one behind everything, and so we chase him off to his fortress of— okay, come on now, this isn't funny anymore. That is a blatant prick and sack. There is no excuse for imagery this disgusting and blatant. What the hell is wrong with you, you creepy old codger? And after the exact same bosses, I swear to God, we've already done with another fight against Wily in the dark. After a few bops to the head, we seize the day. Oh no, look, your plan has failed. I hope this means you won't be jailed.
Oh my god, he has been!
Holy shit! Mega Man actually arrested the stupid crazy asshole and the game ends there! What could possibly go wrong now? Well, I guess everything, because he's Mega Man 7!
After the slight disappointment overall I felt towards 6, I was really taken aback to see that we're on the Super Nintendo now, and this game looks and sounds absolutely marvellous. Just look at this, look at this. The game doesn't even bother hiding it. From the starting gate, it comes out, shoves its pelvis in your face and says,
"Yep, I'm hot, suck it!"
And with the soundtrack, I mean, I have got nothing against the old soundtracks, but after 22 hours back-to-back of 8-bit crunches and screeches, it was starting to get on my tats. And here, the music is not only upbeat and atmospheric, but also smooth as butter to my ears. As is the gameplay itself, actually. There's no stuttering, no slowdown, incredible animations and colours. This is the best looking Mega Man next to Mega Man 8, but I haven't got there yet. All of this visual detail is clear even from the cutscenes and such. Let's see here. The plot this time is that Dr. Wily has been captured, finally, but he expected this to happen all along. I really don't know why. The police here are so useless it took 6 games for that to even happen to you, you daft apeth. And so he created 4 Robot Masters to spring to life after 6 months to start searching for and release Dr. Wily so that he—
Sweet honking crack!
They actually called him that! They knew he's a sick and disgusting lonely old man too! Anyway, as to be expected, they break Wily out of prison and he heads off to
Take over the...
Aside from that horrible typo though, the dialogue itself is much better and features actual character too, and classic tunes and jingles have returned but remixed into 16-bit bliss. From the offset, despite updated hardware and Mega Man X already being out for 2 years when this game came out, it's clear that Mega Man 7 isn't concerned with jumping ship entirely with the classic formula, and instead uses the power of the Super Nintendo to pay as much homage to the classic series in the prettiest and nicest sounding way it can possibly manage, and I'm totally okay with that. Plus, you've still got the silly feet, so that helps. You begin the game this time by picking between only the 4 Robot Masters mentioned in the earlier cutscene, which in all honesty is a big departure from what we're used to so far and shatters replayability in half compared to all the other games before it. So yeah, that's really strange, and also not seeing their names until you enter their stage is just simply a pain in the arse, since you'll never be able to guess what weapon would be best for the stage if you don't know what the Robot Master is even called to guess what they'd be weak to. You do unlock the rest after the first 4 are gone, by the way, but it's still an odd choice. Despite all of this though, the game isn't just calling back to Mega Man's roots in the most faithful way it can muster, because this is actually a full-on big step down in terms of stress and difficulty compared to what we've been through so far. Maybe it's the more pleasant visual style, or maybe it's because the game feels a little bit more zoomed in than anything, meaning not as much can be going on the screen at once, or maybe it's the smoother feeling controls and animations without any stuttering at all, but I found Mega Man 7 to be the easiest game so far. It's not insultingly easy, don't get me wrong, and it kicked my sorry shitter a good few times before I understood how some enemy stages and bosses worked, especially in Turbo Man stage, which, I mean, just screw it. Tires that push you into bottomless bottomless pits everywhere that will always succeed unless your timing is pinpoint perfect, and a one-hit kill fire attack that appears out of nowhere. Whack me off and call me Sandy. We're 7 games in and still trying to do this bollocks. And knockback can still be a bit of a bitch too, along with those lovely enemies built around bottomless pits. But all in all, 7 is still a much more comfortable time compared to the other games. You have all the same abilities too, including sliding and charge shot, and rush comes back in gadget form and not suits. But everything here just doesn't feel as aggressive as it did before. It's a far cry from the other games. My guess is that they were trying to stay away from the insanity of Mega Man X so it didn't feel like the same game, but that's a huge speculation. Boss attacks are back to 4, 5, and 6's quality of readable and fair attacks that will punish you until you learn them too. And once again, I couldn't tell you much about the boss weapons. Not because they're identical to previous ones or anything, but because I never found myself relying on any of them at all because of the difficulty drop. And that is a bit of a shame considering how valuable they were in the previous games, and the fact that you can swap between them on the fly with the trigger buttons is incredibly useful. I mean, I thought they were cool in a few places, like lighting up a dark room in Shade Man's mansion with the electric weapon, but that's all I remember really, and a few enemies stand out as particularly annoying, like the cockroaches and the bobsled spherical things, but because of the lack of standout moments and it being the same game since 4 but easier, it's probably the most forgettable one so far to me. Not bad whatsoever. In fact, I recommend you start here along with Mega Man 2 and 5 for your first time ever if you want to get into the series. It's a much more enjoyable time with minimal teeth grinding frustration, but it's still lacking any kind of, you know, ka-chow. It even has the introduction of a shop which you can use bolts you find in the stages to spend on grabbing new items, from backup E-tanks to extra lives and one-use spike repellents. This is a great addition, I must say, and makes the final product less stressful to deal with along with everything else the game does. In fact, I only used the other weapons whenever shooting straight ahead didn't do the job or against mini-bosses, and I think the devs realised this too, because to compensate for the slightly more forgiving playtime, they changed a number of small things against you, like having stage lengths usually doubled from what you're used to, way more unique and pretty dangerous hazards, a charge shot that takes a bit longer to charge up than you're used to, a really fast drop speed in between screen transitions so predicting and reacting to what's ahead really isn't that easy. Your iframes after attacks have been significantly reduced, and if you want to get access to those rush abilities, you don't just get them, you have to find them and then get to them without dying, and all of those are a nice compromise to make for the slightly slower pace of 7. The best way to play this game in my opinion, however, is with the newly added rapid fire button to fire 3 pellets at once of your Mega Buster insanely quickly, or over and over again if those 3 are off screen fast enough for you to keep the chain going. I don't know if this was on the Super Nintendo version, but it was given a button command on the Legacy Collection too, so I used it all the time, and it makes some of those moments of dodge-filled panicked rushes way more fun to deal with since you can attack back very fast yourself. And that's what Mega Man 7 is to me. Fun. Very fun. It's still the classic structure, still the classic formula and enemies, still the classic controls and items like E-tanks, but it all just flows a little smoother and doesn't feel as chaotic as any other game before it. Proto Man's also here to give you hints that you already knew about. Okay. It's not easy, but definitely the easiest Mega Man I've ever played, so yeah, start here if you want a taste of what classic Mega Man is like without you wanting to rip your own hair out.
Which I already did years ago, so now I have no choice but to slice it off instead.
For the last stretch of this game, we have a strange rivalry with a new character known as Bass, along with his dog Treble, and yes, I know they're in a game called Mega Man and Bass, but that game wasn't in the Legacy Collections, and honestly, after seeing some people's videos about it,
this abomination of a boss battle,
I wouldn't touch that game after I went to the toilet and didn't wash my hands. And they begin with wanting to help you out, but it turns out that he was a creation of Dr. Wily the whole time, and so decides to take you on in a fight to the death, which, I must be honest, is a damn good battle, especially if you didn't have his weakness like I didn't. And the last few stages and bosses then remember it's a classic Mega Man and so amps up the difficulty by a fair degree, leading to some pretty nail-biting encounters, and then finally against big old Wily himself, whose first form I had no problem with. I could take him down without taking a single hit, no problem at all. But the last form of Wily, my god, he can suck on cold meat. The hardest ending boss in a Mega Man game so far as I'm concerned. This dude is close to impossible unless you stock up on tons of items beforehand in the shop, because no matter what you do, you will, I repeat, will take hits. Look at the damn attack patterns here. Unless he is right above me, I can slide to the side and jump over the elemental attacks, but anywhere else, fudge divine I know what to do. And every one of these attacks except the electric shock takes off so much health, it's borderline unplayable without E-tanks to keep the battle going. And if you reach this part of the game without any backup items like I did for my first time, just give up. Go back, farm bolts, buy E-tanks, and go back into the stages. But I suppose this final form of Wily is so difficult to the point that it gives Mega Man a decent excuse to finally justify murdering him in cold blood.
I wonder if I destroy the ball section first.
But of course he doesn't do that, damn sense of right and wrong getting in the way, and so Bass drops in, saves Wily at the last minute, and then we're on to Mega Man 8.
Also, Wily, I don't know what's going on with your chest here, but I like it.
Halloween. Hello?
Hey, it's me.
Oh, it's Jill. How are you doing?
It's Gil.
Jill.
Gil, with a G.
Like a fish?
Yes.
Not a sandwich?
No.
So, Jill, why are you calling me up? Sorry that I didn't recognise your voice. You know, the Game Boy Advance screen doesn't show you who's ringing.
Shut up. I was just making sure you got my package.
Huh? What package?
Oh, nothing special. It's just an early Christmas present I wanted to give to you.
Oh, yeah. There it is. Oh, sorry about that, man. The delivery drivers didn't ring the bell to let me know they posted it. I'll go and open it now. I'm so excited. You're just too kind, you know. You didn't have to do this. Now I just feel bad for not getting you in it. This is a physical copy of Mighty No. 9. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Well, I was gonna get you Mega Man 8 on PS1, but have you seen how much that shit's going for on eBay? It's like 200 quid for a physical copy.
Did you just say quid?
Yes, quid, dosh, readies, bread and honey. Wonga!
Never say another British slang word ever again. Anyway, I'm not gonna be playing this shit. I mean, I can always emulate Mega Man 8 if you want to join in on a video about it.
Alright, cool. I mean, that sounds better than playing that dumpster fire KG Inafune made. Wait, did you not get me anything?
No. Greetings and salutations, my beautiful people, and welcome back to the Caddicarus show, where I always have to do the deciding whether or not things deserve to be slaughtered or salvaged.
Yeah, I'm Gilly the Kid. I don't have one of those introduction catchphrases, so, hey, I'm here.
Yeah, whatever.
Dude, you're lucky I'm still here considering you didn't even get me a present.
Oh, come on, Gil. Being on the Caddicarus show is enough of a present as it is. So, Mega Man!
I don't have much experience with the Blue Bomber as of this video's publishing. So far, I've only played Powered Up, so technically 1, 2, 3, and half of X. And now 8 will be added to that rather pathetic list. But what's your history with him, Gil?
I do happen to be so incredibly obsessed with Mega Man that I have him permanently inked onto my skin. The Mega Man Classic series is my favorite game franchise of all time, and I've played all of them multiple times. And I still pick one up and play through it at least once a month or so. I love the X series as well, but the original Mega Man games are just unrivaled. I have a serious problem.
Oh, then it sounds very much like I'm completely inadequate to tackle this game compared to you, but whatever. It's a PS1 game, it's a side-scrolling action platformer. I dig this just from the way it looks, so how could any of it go wrong?
It won't. Game's good.
Okay, then I'll take your word for it now, but don't go filling me with that Yuletide cheer for nothing.
Don't worry about that. Just check out this intro FMV. Isn't it badass?
Yep, agreed there. This gets you hyped for the game like nothing else. It's like we're watching the start to a proper anime, and it's beautifully animated and very exciting.
What we're doing right now is going through flashes of Mega Man's history and some of the robot masters he's defeated in other games. What's going on with Proto Man's face here, though? I don't know. It's Japan. What do you want me to say?
Actually, I'm not sure this is Mega Man's history because his arm is pointing up in loads of places, which I know for a fact he cannot physically do. Plus, when was Mega Man 1 this exciting? I remember it more like this. Anyway, we start the game off and look at this, isn't it pretty? Birds flying, lots of colours, running and jumping around with jolly music. Wow, things couldn't get any better.
Holy shit, the trees attack you! What the fuck? This isn't cool! Fuck you, Mega Man! More like Tiny Man, you tiny little fuck!
Dude, if you're getting this upset on the first screen, you're gonna shit the bed later.
Anyway, we go through a pretty straightforward and easy intro stage that basically just serves as a little testing ground to get a feel for the controls. And at the end of the stage is this crab boss thing. Fire a few shots at him and he goes down pretty quickly. We then get some brilliantly bad translated dialogue.
We enter the stage select screen and whoa, this is so pretty. I could look at this all day.
Wow, how can you say that when I'm right here?
Oh yeah, you're very pretty too. I just think you need a bit more flashing lights. Nice weather we're having, isn't it?
It's freezing out.
Just like your heart!
Okay, so I'm doing alright. I picked Grenade Man as my first robot master, and this stage is really fun actually. It's challenging but a decent place to start in my opinion. And here we go. Here's my first proper boss.
I'll be nice on you!
Oh, did he just say he'll be nice on me? Oh, that's so kind of him. He must know that this is my first Mega Man experience for a couple of years now. Oh god, I'm expecting a nice comfortable ride here. What?
How are you this stuck?
Oh, so my deaths are funny to you, are they? Go easy on me. This guy is fast, frantic, and hits like a truck when you don't have his weakness to fight against him.
It's really not that bad. Just be patient, don't stay too close to him, listen to the audio cues, and while you're dodging his attacks, charge your Mega Buster ready for the next opening.
Wait, what did you just say?
Charge your Mega Buster ready for the next opening?
You're fucking joking!
You didn't know you could do that?
No!
What?
Oh, come on, it's been ages since I played a Mega Man game. Leave me alone.
And damn, this is 50 times easier with that charge shot. I can't believe I didn't think of that. Within a minute, I'm done and ready for my next challenge. Damn right, I got Grenade Man's weapon. Thanks for reminding us what game we're playing. Mega Man standing right there kind of gave it away a bit.
Speaking of, I think I'll talk a little bit more about the actual game if you don't mind, seeing as how you have no clue what you're doing. Mega Man 8's level design is just a little bit different from previous games. They tried to change things up just a little bit in terms of how stages are designed and progressed through. For example, one of the stages isn't even linear, and one of them is quite literally a maze.
That stage sucks ass, by the way.
And personally, I really enjoy collecting all the hidden bolts around every stage. They aren't just really nice collectibles for whenever you teach the level design what's what, but it also rewards your curiosity with alternate routes around some tricky sequences, so it's a double plus. They aren't too easy to find either, and many require you to react within a second and go against what you expect would be the most obvious route, and some even require manipulation of the stage in order to reach them. When you get some more Robot Master powers later on, going back to stages in order to open up even more routes allows for even more rewards like lives, ammo, health, and potentially more bolts, which is great for replayability. Then with the bolts, when you collect enough, you get to buy some shit which can be insanely helpful for the rest of the game, like no knockback when you're damaged, or changing your charge shot into a piercing laser. Anyway, here we are at the next boss, and I'm extremely confused. I can't figure out why the game doesn't give me enough room to actually run underneath the jumps. Even if I react immediately, I get hit. What is this shit?
You can slide.
What?
You didn't know about the slide?
Yes?
I'm embarrassed to even be affiliated with you. Keep your fucking collab, I'm out.
Well, fine then. Fuck off, Jill Sandwich.
So I'll just say this while Gil isn't here.
Fuck these board parts!
It's hard enough trying to react in frame-perfect timing with a HD TV delay, but even without that, after most of the slides you perform, you are given literal milliseconds to make huge jumps afterwards. And even after I died multiple times at the same parts and I knew what was coming, I still died on most of my replays. You literally just can't react until the very end of the platform is already... And that voice clip, that king voice clip that warned you for every jump and slide coming up. It's really useful for sure, but it never shuts up and just gives you the same exact voice clips in the same tone over and over again. It's just jump, 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 slide, slide, jump, slide, slide, jump, jump, slide, slide, jump, jump, slide, slide, jump, jump, slide, slide, jump.
You playing Mega Man 8 or reading the fucking Kama Sutra?
What's the right answer?
You're sick.
Like I mentioned before about changing things up, there are some mechanics and features added to this game that are unique to this entry. For example, Mega Man can now swim, which is a godsend, as well as brand new abilities for Rush.
I'll crush you! I will beat you!
Oh, will you now? Well, I've got grenades, so... I thought they'd go in. As far as the bosses themselves go, well, they're one of the most famous aspects of Mega Man for the fact that they all match alongside the themes of the stages and all give you new weapons upon defeat, and all have weaknesses against other boss weapons. For as memorable as these encounters are though, in the other games I've played, except arguably 3, once you get the weakness attacks, they all go down a bit too easy. However, I don't know about you, Gil, but I found all of these guys a great and fun challenge with totally varied and interesting methods of fighting them, even with the correct weaknesses. Tengu Man, for instance, stood out to me since, weirdly, this flying ninja thing's weakness is the ice attack, which isn't only not very obvious at all and requires experimentation to figure out, but also requires you totally changing your playstyle since the ice attack only works on the floor. So to tackle him, you have to play conservatively and patiently, dodging all the time until that one moment that you can attack him when he's on the floor, unless you switch between other weapons while he's flying around. But it's still really cool how it makes some encounters not that obvious and easy whatsoever.
To be honest, as far as Mega Man games go, the bosses in this game kinda suck. With the exception of a few, most are rendered totally helpless once you have their weakness. And the ones that aren't are actually more of a frustrating pain in the ass than anything.
And hey, Gil, I think we've neglected to mention one of the best things about Mega Man 8 for a bit too long now. As you can probably tell from a couple of the clips I showed off earlier,
Crush everyone!
the voice acting in this game is so gloriously shit, I don't know what I can say about it. And when the cutscenes roll around, holy bloody buggering bibble bastards, it makes them some of the greatest I've ever seen.
But where is Dr. Wily?
That's a good question. You must recover all the energy immediately, Mega Man. When we find that meteor, we'll find Dr. Wily.
So, Gil, I have a question. This is some of the really funniest fucking shit you literally ever seen. Gil, where are you going? We need to find Dr. Wily. How about cool, yeah, pussy? Okay, should we talk more about the game then?
Great!
Where did you go?
Dude, ragging on Mega Man 8's voice acting has been done to death. We all know it's bad. I'm not gonna be any part of beating a dead horse on YouTube.
Oh, okay then. Before we carry on though, here is Rush the dog screaming and yelling like he's having the jolliest orgasm.
Okay, stop.
I'm not sorry.
This game looks great. Colors are a bit soft, and it's not quite as memorable as my favorite art style, which goes to Mega Man 7, but it's definitely a vast upgrade from the NES games. As iconic as Mega Man's 8-bit sprite is, I always thought this game and 7 were a better representation of what Mega Man really looks like. The music is pretty cool too, since the game's audio isn't constrained by the console. As much as I love the chiptune stuff, it's cool to hear the first Mega Man game whose soundtrack wasn't hindered by the limitations limits of a sound chip.
I gotta say, man, this game is seriously pretty. I love the visual design and colors of every stage, and the amount of things exploding and particles flying everywhere. It feels like you're playing within a proper interactive anime, and the smooth frame rate makes it all the sweeter. The FMV is pretty great quality stuff too, even when the actors don't seem to care at all about what they're doing.
My name is Duo. I was born with the sole purpose.
And when they care a little bit too much about what they're doing.
Shut your hole!
Have you ever noticed that Mega Man's breathing animation is really fucking weird? All they've done is squeeze and stretch some pixels of his sprite to simulate breathing, and it looks fucking ridiculous. Wait a second, isn't Mega Man supposed to be a robot? Why is he breathing? Every other robot in the game has no breathing cycle. What is this? Capcom, explain!
So I was surprised by how good this game looks for sure, but going back to level design, I was also surprised to see more emphasis on platforming and not just shooting everything over and over again. It broke up the game really nicely with the timing testing, and even the odd stage has puzzle solving under pressure and more non-linear progression, such as trying to open a door by finishing mini challenge rooms in any order that you'd like. Astro Man stage even has lots of exploration with button pressing, which I thought was really awesome stuff.
I won't hold back.
Oh, I don't want you to hold back with a sword that big.
What the hell is wrong with you?
And hey, this game may be a lot more forgiving than other Mega Mans.
Mega Mans?
Yeah, Mega Mans. Oh wait, that does sound weird.
Mega Mans? Mega Men?
Ugh, no. Anyway, this may be more forgiving than some of the other games because of the continue points in all of the stages halfway through the levels if you lose all of your lives, but you still need to put yourself in harm's way and scavenge for every single life you can, especially for the bosses, because there's nothing more frustrating than losing them all there and starting from the middle of the lengthy stages all over again. And yes, you may lose a lot of your lives from a few instances of bullshit and not just the board riding. There are these parts where you have to swing perfectly on these grapple points and jump the gaps in one shot, or else die instantly and lose a precious life. And it's even better when you have to do that, but then a door appears off screen that you couldn't see coming, and then you need to shoot that down after you swing in order for you to make it across. That shit's irritating. And do not get me started on this bit in Wily Fortress Stage 1. Why is the timing so strict? Christ almighty!
Yeah, I mean, I'm in total agreement with you. There weren't too many bullshit moments for me, but the worst one is by far that grappling fucking bullshit.
And you know what? I really think the upgrades you can purchase could have been a lot better. I only got no knockback and laser shot because the rest I didn't feel were worth the high bulk cost because of how pickups in the stages are pretty frequent. Especially once you get 2 or 3 boss weapons, you can just start getting through the stages a lot more comfortably without wasting much ammo. Plus, Roll, I don't know what you're wearing here, but I think you have some explaining to do. I don't know though, I'm not a Mega Man guy, so what do you think about this?
Yeah, in my experience, most of those upgrades were pretty useless. The only 3 which I think are good are the no knockback one for obvious reasons. The auto fire upgrade is actually pretty handy unless you need to climb ladders, and to be honest, it may seem pointless to get the extra life upgrade, but that comes in really fucking handy at the end of the game.
Luckily though, I did find countless uses for nearly every single weapon dropped from the bosses. These were all pretty badass and not just for defeating bosses a little easier. Personally, my favourites were the Flash Bomb because it leaves such a huge and long-lasting damage area, the Thunderclaw because it can swipe through a large row of enemies in a second, the Flame Sword because it's insanely powerful and great for panicky in-your-face last-minute attacks, and the Water Balloon because it's basically a much more powerful Mega Buster with, yes, shorter range, but lots of ammo for a special weapon, and basically became my new default attack once I got it.
Flame Sword's tight, ball's fucking lame. Never used it. Except, well, forget it.
And hey, Gil, aren't you proud of me? I'm at Wily Fortress all by myself. What's so funny?
Oh, nothing. You'll see soon enough.
So anyway,
we reach Wily Fortress and get through a steadily increasing and challenging series of levels, which are fun enough, and then we have a boss here, which, oh, okay, I died, no big deal, let's try that again. There's a boss here, which, okay, what do we even do here, Gil? Help me. Oh, I see, we have to hit the bottom thing here. A tornado hold should do it. Wait, what the fuck? Why doesn't that work here? It works everywhere else in the game, but not here. Stop laughing! It's not funny! Look, this is bullshit. You have to use the ball kicking power-up, which does have its uses in the stages, but is the most awkward and useless attack in the world on this boss that, despite being its weakness, is a total pain in the ass to aim where you want it to go. The target isn't down for long enough, it's impossible to aim accurately, insanely difficult to aim and shoot before the target goes, and then attack and dodge every single attack dropped by the boss without losing tons of health. This fight is a random fucking guessing game and it's a load of shit. Even when you know what you're doing, it's nearly impossible, and I just could not aim upwards and attack without something dropping on my head milliseconds afterwards. This fucking sucks.
And then you get a flying rush section later on that kills you instantly if you don't get through these moving corridors fast enough. But unless you know that they're coming up so you can get right up their asses immediately, you will not be able to zigzag back and forth through them fast enough and you lose another life.
Are you enjoying this?
Yep, no shame. I live for this shit.
Huh. Alright then. Whatever turns you on, I guess.
Hell yeah, it does.
Okay, then moving on. Now I'm at the last boss, and it's a pretty intense final fight, to be honest. It's even got 2 phases you need to do on 1 life, and even with Rush coming in to help me with health pickups halfway through the fight, I still only managed to beat Dr. Wowie with literally a fingernail of health left. Damn, that's satisfying. Oh, really? Dr. Wowie? You seriously begging for forgiveness 8 games in? Why does this keep happening?
And hey, entirely coincidentally, as we were making this video, the 11th classic Mega Man game was announced, so it's obvious. Unless Mega Man executes Wily at the end of the game, it'll never fucking stop.
And after all of this, Mega Man 8 gets the salvage today.
But you don't have the game box.
No, but you do. And overall, I thought Mega Man 8 was great. I'd rate it 8 out of 8 on a plate while I'm on a dinner date with Gil.
I really don't know why I decided to do this with you.
And hey, do you want to close this video off by talking about some of the main differences between this and the Saturn version?
No, I can't take this anymore.
I won't take you on a dinner date if you talk about it.
So the Saturn version of Mega Man 8.
I won't go into too much detail, but in the Saturn version, there's bosses that are completely omitted from the PlayStation version, and it's fucking bullshit. I definitely much prefer that version, even though it's really inaccessible and expensive, because there's just more content that you don't get in the PlayStation version. And the really annoying thing is that they've never re-released it or ported it to anything, so the only way that you can play the Saturn version is by either owning a copy, which is really fucking expensive, or emulating it.
Well, that's very interesting, Gil, but you fell right into my trap because you talked about the Sega Saturn on my beloved PS1 show.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
So hey, what do you do after you're done making classic Mega Man for the Super Nintendo? Jump to the Nintendo 64? Jump to the GameCube? No. Wait until the Wii, PS3 and Xbox 360. Okay, fair enough, but what really shocked me was that despite the more modern console release, the game went back to 8-bit. Then I was even more shocked to see that there was no intro cutscene either, and instead you jumped straight into the level select from a static menu. Then I was even more shocked to see our first ever female Robot Master. Oh, and we also have Plug Man. Yes, Plug Man. At least now he can join forces with Hard Man and we've got both ends covered. For a second I was a bit worried we were calling back to this 8-bit style and lack of story for the sake of laziness for a game released in 2008 and the 9th entry to a classic series, but then, luckily, after the first Robot Master you take down, we do get a bit of story with cutscenes and dialogue, so at least we haven't gone that far back. In the simplest terms, Dr. Wily is back again, but with no apparent connection to a string of attacks from 8 Robot Masters, and a video shows up of Dr. Light making these robots himself, causing Wily to ask people for donations in order to combat the evil Dr. Light. Why anybody believes this creature is beyond me, considering Wily has done this 8 times before, but what do I know? I don't live in Building City. Maybe the residents' heads are so full of cement that they're actually buildings themselves. And so the rest of the game is about stopping the robots and proving Dr. Light's innocence. Alrighty then, let's go. You'll also notice it's not only visually where the game is stripped back, we are now back to Mega Man 2 levels of control. As in, we can no longer charge shot or slide. You still have rush gadgets though, and the turbo fire button from Mega Man 7, which I still love, and the shop system from 7, which will save you more than once. As far as the rest goes, it's as close to 2 in terms of set-piece platforming and enemy waves as it gets, especially with the more limited control, but it also throws in even more experimental obstacles that I really didn't see coming. There are swings that you have to shift your weight around so that they can be exploited in many different ways. There's pink launching capsules that fly you all over the place, and more surprisingly, the game is built more around preemptive warnings of what's coming up in the stages and showing you how things work before giving you a challenge to conquer. For instance, with this new enemy in this space stage, the game lets you get grabbed by the first one in safety to show you how it works, and then tries it on you again but with life-threatening obstacles to test your understanding of it. I even loved the subtle design choice here. When you run past one of these things dropping from the top of the screen with no problem at all, you'll miss it. But once you make your way up to the above platform, you won't be able to run past it when it drops again, and if you weren't paying attention earlier, you'll get grabbed by it, but you still have a chance to save yourself from the insta-kill spikes if you remembered that you walked past them a few seconds ago, ready for you to try the run again. This, above all the other games in my opinion, is the most interested with giving you a tough but totally fair journey. But it does test your attention more than the other games too, like with some obstacles you assume you're totally familiar with for the game to only stick its finger up at you because hey, this is a new game after all, so don't expect an identical copy, you arrogant ignoramus. The game still has optional trickier routes that massively reward you, the stage lengths are shorter again, this is way closer to classic Mega Man than 7 was, alright, and despite being 9 games in, it still managed to surprise me, like in Tornado Man stage with these balloon enemies. When I shot them expecting them to go away immediately like usual, only for the balloon itself to burst and then have the enemy fly towards me for one last attack, that was pretty funny and totally unexpected for me. As was when I got attacked by this octopus here and got covered in oil, and when I saw some extra lives that then turned out to be those prickhead shell enemies in disguise. I can't tell you how charming I found that to be. Bosses are fantastic as well with the same readable and learnable attack patterns, and even some managed to surprise me once again, like with Jewel Man, which took me too long to figure out that he was only jumping when I was jumping, meaning that you can use that to exploit his movements and punish him. That's a really clever twist. And their weapons are back to being amazing, like the Magma one that's like another spread gun that's only one shot at a time to balance out its power. The Hornets are a homing missile that don't only lock on and destroy targets but even pick up the dropped items from enemies and gives them back to you. The Laser Trident is essentially the replacement to the Charge Shot except usable in rapid fire. The Bomb, I love this weapon. You fire it, activate it when you want to, and it sucks up any enemy and projectile straight into its void for easy room clear outs. The Dual Shield as well is the best shield by far since it mixes all the previous shields together. You can run and jump while wearing it unlike the Leaf Shield in 2, fire it whenever you wish like in 2, or keep yourself guarded instead and just protect yourself like with the last few games. The Tornado attack is essentially a screen nuke and very fun to use. Concrete gives you a temporary platform for spike pits and climbing, but also kills most enemies instantly at the cost of no item drop, and the plug balls fire straight downwards, are very fast, and stick to any solid surface until it hits a target. This may be compensating for your lack of charge shot and slide, but I don't care. Mega Man 9 has the best selection of boss weapons in the whole series bar none, and every single one of them was so useful to the point that I saw myself running out of ammo more than any other game before it. I loved them so much. The final stages also show off that Wily actually somehow managed to talk nearly scrapped robots back into working for him, which is all caught on this one Robot Master's data chip. But before we can send this to the police, Wily steals the chip, meaning another trek to his house in order to take him down. As for some of these stages though, well, not since Mega Man 1 have I seen right angular jumps with strict ceilings this awful. There's no room for error here whatsoever, and I hate it all with a passion. To get this far and constantly game over because your timing isn't absolutely pixel perfect over an insta-kill trap is so ridiculously unfair it nearly made me rage quit. And for the love of all that is holy, the ending bosses and stuff aren't the hardest in Mega Man history, but do not, I repeat, do not die at the ending portions and lose all of your items and tanks, because if you die there learning the attacks of bosses and stages, get through the Robot Master rematches and all that jazz, and then game over at the very end, unlike 7 where you can start off at the Wily stage you were just on, here you begin all the way back at the start of Wily Castle all over again! With all of those piece of shit horrible jumps that could cause you to game over all over again. Seriously, this is my least favourite stage in all the classic Mega Man games for absolute definite. This ending ruins the whole game for me because of this restarting system. I know the games aren't the longest and it's all about replayability to figure stuff out and come back stronger, but why force players to go through every single boss, horrible level and rematch again just because you weren't 100% sure how the final Wily encounters worked when you got there?
No joke, at this point I'd played so much Mega Man that I hadn't washed in 3 days straight and I started to smell like a dead rotting pig. So while stacking up on items in the shop, I even bought Mega Man the chance to get his hair out so he could at least let a bit of air get to it.
After a rematch with the bloody sodding devil, which is, well, not too bad actually, we then get a very cool fight involving bouncing eggs back at Wily, followed by a tricky but easily telegraphed fiery attack flying Wily, and then a difficult yet much easier version of the asinine Wily capsule fight from 7, which then ends with an actually funny scene of Mega Man showing off all the times Wily has begged pathetically for forgiveness and yet keeps on being evil. Should have killed him when you had the chance, Megs! And then Wily agrees to give up and takes us to Dr. Light's prison cell, which Proto Man immediately warns us is a trap, but we ignore it because Mega Man's head must be full of cement too, leaving Mega Man shocked on the floor, Wily detonating his own damn castle.
Where does he keep getting the funding to build these things?
And then after being rescued, a very cute credit sequence happens showing us all what happened to the originally planned to be scrapped Robot Masters doing much more friendly and helpful jobs. A lovely touch to a lovely game, and yes, aside from the run of the end game, I massively enjoyed Mega Man 9. It's basically Mega Man 2 again, but with much better weapons and rush gadgets, so logically this would mean I like it more than 2, but I don't, and I'll tell you why. If this were 3, I'd be way more inclined to say this was better, but this is a 2008 8th sequel to the original Mega Man. There's not enough different here for me to say it's one of the best this late on into the series, especially since it went back to the 8-bit aesthetic. It's brilliant fun and a great Mega Man game, but it's not a great sequel. It takes too many steps back from 5, especially for me, to confidently say that it's better than 2, but hey, like I said, it's still a terrific action platformer.
Before we jump to the final game though, Mega Man 10. Can I just warn you on something very important? In the shop, do not buy Roll's face for 200 bolts. I nearly did, thinking it was actually worth something until I looked up what it does. It changes her appearance. If I wasted 200 bolts on that, I would have screamed so loudly that my vocal cords would have been splayed out across this table.
Oh my god, I really have played 9 games for this series, haven't I? Well, I mean, to start off with, this is different. You get to pick between Mega Man and Proto Man, the latter of which has the slide and charge shot. Yep, I'm sold, I'm picking him first. And what's this? Difficulty options? We haven't had that since Mega Man 2. What a lovely addition. I'll pick normal though, since I have an advantage with Proto Man's moveset already, and the fact that he can deflect bullets whenever he jumps. He can't fire more than twice at a time instead of the 3 times like Mega Man can, making the turbo button a lot less useful, but I like the added acrobatics more.
It was then I discovered, after crying in my mom's blankie, that Proto Man is in fact the hard mode of this game. Yeah, because he has half the health as Mega Man. So 4 Robot Masters into the game's worth of progress and dozens of deaths later, I decided it was too hard for me, it was too much, so I decided to start the whole game from the beginning, and I hate my life!
Here we have a slightly darker story though, which I wasn't expecting. There's a deadly infection to robots going around known as Robo-Enza. Don't ask me how robots get sick. This is coming from a series with this on its front cover. Wily then actually comes to Dr. Light, Proto Man and Mega Man peacefully after Mega Man's sister Robot Roll gets infected, and says that an infected Robot Master has stolen the machine that he built to create medicine for the illness. So off we go to save everyone yet again, and well, damn, this couldn't be any more similar to 9 if it tried. That is, if you pick Mega Man at least. It could be because at this point I'm totally fatigued on the games, but this really is the same game, just with a character select and lots of different dotted obstacles all over the place, some of which were really cool actually. The way these power belts worked into the mini-boss for Sheepman stage was a fantastic touch, and yes, Sheepman is now a Robot Master, don't question it. And it was cool to see some more modern real-life themes in the stages, like that point-and-click dragging mouse. A bit jarring to see at first, but equally very cool and different. And how about a pooey old sewer level? This is new. And a football stadium. Why not? It's even got an evil goalpost robot, killer bouncing balls, and evil robot lockers. This is very creative stuff, alright? Since you can pick between the characters though, the game once again isn't built around sliding, since only Proto Man can do it, leaving it as mainly an evasive action. But this, aligned with the fact that Proto Man has Rush Jet from the start of the game, just isn't worth the extra difficulty in my opinion. Especially with the added amounts of bullshit here. Compared to 9, there's plenty more stupid, annoying moments that really hold it back, not only as a sequel to 9, but as a 10th damn entry. For instance, how do you feel like fighting a transmorphing devil monster that takes up to a third of the screen and can push you into a bottomless pit that's all around you? Because it's here, it's boring, it can hit you only around 4 times before you need an E-tank. This is worse than 1's yellow devil if you ask me. Screw this boss in every hole it possibly has. Off-screen kills here, like in the sewer stage, are all over the place. The game loves overflowing you with enemies and bottomless pits, and there's a few more aggravating gotcha traps to drain all your lives to, especially with holes. Do not trust any holes in Mega Man 10, otherwise Plugman and Hardman will pop out and surprise you. Enemies will be jumping out of these things all the time just to piss you off, and this all feels more artificially tricky for the sake of it being the 10th bloody entry. As Proto Man, there's even less items in the shop you can buy, and along with every other handicap he has, like lower health and lower damage output, it's terrible that nowhere in the whole game does it even hint at this being a harder version of the same game. I thought I picked my difficulty at the, you know, difficulty menu. What's with this secret difficulty here? And it's a very cruel trick considering that Mega Man lost the slide and charge shot in the last game, so of course you'd want that back. Why wouldn't you pick Proto Man? If you do pick Mega Man though, this whole game is essentially 9, just not as good. I enjoyed it fine enough, but for the number 10, any impact it had of anything slightly new just isn't there anymore. I mean, I liked the sandstorms here and how they blind you and blow you around bottomless pits and easy smaller enemies. That was pretty cool stuff. And those trucks that honk to warn you that they're coming off screen before running you down, but you can also use them as a platforming obstacle. And the platform that moves left and right as you stand on each end. And the entire sports stage now I think about it, but that's all that really stuck out to me. Solar Man stage though is easily my least favourite in the entire series, all because of these jumping flames. They do so much damage, take up most of the screen, and you have to avoid them while getting attacked from flying enemies, while avoiding lasers from a flower that is only vulnerable when it fires the lasers, but if you jump to avoid the laser, there's a chance that the jumping fire will be above you anyway, making it impossible to not take damage in any situation. And you try climbing ladders while all this stuff is going on, because every mistake throws you all the way back down the ladders, not only meaning you lost your health, but lost all your progress and meaning you'll go through the hard stuff all over again. I hate this whole stage. But I mean, the game in its entirety is fine, but it's just there. Can't say much about the powers either. We've got another shield that isn't as good as a dual shield because you're still open to attack if a certain part of the shield is damaged. The Thunder Wall is kind of cool, but it takes far too long to activate for it to be useful. You can freely control the bombs where they fly, but firstly, they move way too quickly and you won't be able to steer them with all this other crap going on. The blades are okay, but only fire up and down depending on if you're running or jumping. And do you want to freeze enemies? but nothing else, because you can do that now. The solar attack I use the most. Powerful, cuts through waves of enemies in front and behind you, and has great coverage. And yes, by this point at the ending of the game, I was smart enough to stock up on E-tanks and weapon refills ready for the end, and I'm glad I did, because you don't only get a nice callback to all the other Mega Mans by fighting all the different robot masters from his history, but it also means you'll spend a lot more E-tanks just trying to guess what weapons you have that could possibly be the weakness of a totally unrelated boss from another game. This then leads on to a cool little throwback to that Mega Man 5 boss where you had to use platforms and avoid aerial attacks in order to punish the boss from high up. The only time I found the Thunderwall to be massively useful, actually. Look at that damage. Oh, cure. Then we have more damn rematches with this game's robots because the game hates you, and then we reach Wily himself, whose first form is once again reminiscent of that fight in Mega Man 5 and a great little battle to nail down. Then the second phase, which is a little more aggressive but nothing you shouldn't be prepared for, especially for number 10. And instead of an immediate capsule fight, you instead go all the way up to bloody space for a zero-G encounter with a slightly easier version of the same disappearing, reappearing fight you all know all too well by this point. After defeating him, Wily then turns out to get sick from the Robo-Enza virus despite not being a robot. What? But before you can even wonder what that's all about, it doesn't matter anyway because a few days later he's recovering in hospital and just leaves with all the medicine for everyone else behind. Why? Why? What? And with all those unanswered questions and a complete anticlimax, we finally come to the end of Mega Man 10 and we won't see the rest of the story unfold until Mega Man 11.
Okay, to conclude this absolute beast of a video series, all I can really say is this. Firstly, do not play these games back to back in any kind of time pressure like I did. I swear to God I knocked off 10 years of my lifespan by doing so. And secondly, despite my raw, pure anger that most of the games gave me with their particular moments, I actually did enjoy these games a lot overall. I was just really stressed out and under time to do it. That's the difference. And in my opinion, if you want to get into Mega Man, I can only recommend you doing so with the classic series with the Legacy collections because of the save feature. If you're new to the series and don't want to throw your controller at the TV, then this save feature will be your saving grace. I mean, I don't know how, especially in the 80s and 90s, they expected kids that they were advertising to do all of this without that. And if you were one of those kids back in the day, I can only salute you. I don't know how you still have your sanity intact. You're braver than I am.
That, and despite the immense similarities between every single game, they managed to follow from each other really well. It does feel like a quest of truly epic proportions, and it doesn't matter how similar they all feel because they still somehow manage to be engaging. The gameplay at its core is just that solid, even if a lot of it is the same stuff. If I'm going to be honest, I really don't like the tradition of fighting every single robot master all over again just for the sake of it near the end of the game. It pads them out more than anything and just drains your resources before the final bosses with Wily. But I suppose that's what you get into when you play Mega Man, so you just need to be ready for it.
If, though, I had to pick from my favourite to least favourite classic Mega Man game, not because I majorly dislike some more than the others, but if I just had to put my favourite ones into a particular order, 5 is my favourite without question for the power-ups, variety and tightness of the whole experience, followed by 2, then 9, 4, 8, 7, 6, 10, 1, and then 3, because at least with 1 I can forgive its shite for being the first in the series, but 3 games in, that is one that I can honestly say I really didn't like all that much, despite all the cool staples that would appear in the future games. And with that, well, I'm done now. No more Mega Man until Mega Man 11. And do you think I'm ever going to do a video series like this ever again? Oh God, Halloween is getting closer. I can feel it. I've already been jump scared twice today. Maybe if I play a scary game right now, I'll desensitize myself to the next scary thing that's gonna happen to me. Yeah, great idea, me. Let's see what we've got here then. Ah! Not you! No! No! Not no! Now I know what you're thinking. It's October. It's the month of terror. What on earth does Mega Man have to do with Halloween? In case you weren't aware, I finished every single classic Mega Man game from the Legacy Collection a few weeks ago. I didn't wash for 3 days straight and nearly went insane with some of the bullshit that the games threw at me, and if that image alone doesn't scare the bejesus out of you, I really don't know what will.
But the reason I did that was because Mega Man 11 was due to be released and I wanted to catch up on the series ready for when that game came out, and I'd already done a singular video on Mega Man 8 for the PS1. And you know, since the best game ever made, Mighty Number 9, hasn't been released on the Vita yet, I guess we'll have to jump onto Mega Man 11 instead. How unfortunate. Yes, I'm a little butthurt by him. Mega Man's arm cannon up there will do that to you. But in all seriousness, after playing Mega Man 11, I thought the game was completely fantastic. It was hard, don't get me wrong, but I massively enjoyed every single stage, challenge, and boss from start to end, and it's now in my top favorite Mega Man games from the classic series, maybe even my favorite, but I can't be 100% sure on that since I did finish every single other game back to back and it made me smell so bad that my beard was secreting a smelly fluid.
But now I'm here, I'm gonna play the game in a more comfortable time frame, and I'm sure that Dr. Wily isn't the bad guy once again for the 11th game in a row.
God damn it, Wily!
Well, you know what they say, when you see the words Mega and Man together,
we'll find Dr. Wily.
Speaking of that though, Mega Man 11 actually features the most story the series has offered since Mega Man powered up on the PSP. There's original artwork depicting more of the history between Dr. Light and Dr. Wily, and fully fledged voice acting that's cheesier than my pants. I can get down with all of this, and the story here revolves around Wily waking up from a bad dream. He's so evil, he has skulls on his pajamas. And in that dream, he's reminded of one of his earliest robot part experiments that was outright objected by every single co-worker around him many years ago. The special robot part in question was the double gear system, which allows any robots to either increase their power or speed temporarily with the flick of a switch. So with this information refreshed in his head, he sets off to take over the world before even having a complete breakfast.
Wait a second. You mean to tell me that Wily has never thought about this invention that he came up with years ago that he was publicly humiliated and rejected about? After all this time, he's only just remembered it. I don't want to fight him anymore. I think Wily's going senile.
This was all just a flashback though, because in the present day of 2000, they still don't know what year it is. We're 11 games in and nobody thought to buy a calendar. We follow the exploits of Dr. Light, Auto, Rock and Roll as they do what they always do. Nothing. And then all of a sudden...
What on earth?
Not that noise! Not that noise! Not that...
Surprise, surprise, Wily came back. Couldn't you tell from his pajamas? And this only begs the question, why does Rock ever take off his Mega Man suit? Why bother at this point? Wily is clearly deranged and delusional enough to keep on coming back forever. Taking the suit off to only put it back on again is a huge waste of time at best.
You see, I recalled some old research. The very invention you so coldly crushed when we were students together. Or has your memory failed you?
Oh, shut up, Wily. You forgot all about your greatest invention ever until you had a wet dream.
We can't just let him get away!
Oh, what? You mean like you do at the end of every single game, you complete tosspot? Okay, so this story is pretty bloody terrible, but the main thing is that it doesn't ever take itself seriously and is a lot of fun to witness and listen to despite everything taking place in rather static situations. It's got a little bit more focus than the previous games, but it's appreciated. And you know what else I appreciated? The visuals here. My god, this is a pretty game. Granted, it's not the most beautiful thing I've ever seen or the best looking side-scroller ever made in my opinion, but this pseudo 3D style in a 2D plane that isn't quite 2.5D because of the lack of traveling between different dimensions is pulled off extremely effectively.
No. The joke is dead now. Just naughty.
I would have loved to see a 16 or 32-bit Mega Man 7 or 8 style tried out again with brand new hardware to push the animations to the absolute breaking point, but this to me is a fantastic substitute. It looks familiar yet totally fresh, extremely colourful, and lends well to the themes of each stage. It runs on a buttery smooth 60 FPS, the cel-shaded style is extremely unique and fitting for Mega Man, and my favourite thing about it is how it manages to take all of the anime aesthetics Mega Man is famous for and places them directly into the game, such as the way that the fire of Torchman looks. It's a cartoon flame on a 3D body. How cool is that? And those explosions, every single explosion, I've never felt so good about blowing shit up before until I played Mega Man 11. Well, except for in Mighty Number 9, it's pretty hard to top this. They look like old Rice Krispies. And it sounds great as well. The soundtrack may not be the catchiest in Mega Man history, but I could jam out to these tunes any day of the week. Anyway, let's kick off into the game. Same poo, different hole. 8 Robot Masters and 4 Wily stages until the end of the game. Except Mega Man this time decided to turn into Jiminy Cricket. And actually, now that I think about it, there is one major use of the 2.5D mechanics that I can think of. This mini-boss in Impact Man stage. He spins around into the foreground and background, meaning that you have to jump over him while he comes into your plate. Yeah. I think more moments like this would have been great to really add not only to the added depth to the visuals, but how they work within the gameplay too. But at the same time, Mega Man 11 doesn't actually need to add anything in my opinion. With everything else it brings new to the table, 11 classic games in.
The tents are enemies. Tents as enemies in a video game. The year is 2018, and we have tents as enemies in a video game!
Yeah, I'm sorry, the new stuff the game brings to the table. Well, for one thing, Wily is not the only one using the elusive double gear system. Mega Man also has access to it, which allows you to either slow down time or ultra power up your shots for a very short amount of time with the flick of a trigger button. And to be completely honest with you, I found this to be an extremely welcome change to the formula that added a totally new dynamic within the running and gunning Mega Man is best known for. In fact, it totally changed how I played nearly every single stage, yet it didn't make them insultingly easy since many of the obstacles and enemies are built to be ideally taken head on with these abilities by your side. Enemies can even drop gear coolant that immediately adds more time onto the current power that you're using, but it's well balanced in the sense that the game discourages you from spamming them. The time limit these abilities last before you burn out the chip is pretty short before you need to wait for it to cool down and use them again, and the power and speed gears also share the same meter, making it all the more tricky for you to decide what the best timing is to use what power and at what point. And if you get bad at managing it and end up burning out the gears, not only do you have to wait a much longer time for a cooldown, but you also can't use the gears at all until they're fully cooled down in that situation. A huge punishment for being careless with such power at your fingertips. It's not only a really cool mechanic, but creates another layer of thought for you as a player that weaves in and out of the other things you need to consider, such as your confidence in running and gunning itself, your time management of the double gears, your knowledge of the stages, and making sure that you're not getting over-reliant on the double gears anyway. However, out of the two gears, I use the speed gear all the damn time. I loved this move. And you can even use it to slow down your invincibility frames, which can save your life on the odd occasion. Also, this is all mixed in with Mega Man's classic moves that he's had given back to him since losing them in Mega Man 9 and 10, charge, shot, and sliding, opening up more chances for interesting enemy challenges, level designs, and last-minute life-saving with an extra powerful shot or dodge maneuver. But Mega Man doesn't look terrified anymore when he's sliding.
Oh my god!
Here he just looks bored. Rush even makes a return, and for the first time ever is set to a separate button command while you're in the normal Mega Man mode, which makes him even more fun to use. And in case you think the game would be made too easy with the addition of the double gears, have no fear, because other little things were tweaked to compensate, like the knockback, which now staggers you for a long ass time before you can move again, massively punishing you for getting cocky no matter the situation. The shop system has also made a return where you can collect many different types of bolts in the stages in order for you to buy tons of permanent upgrades to Mega Man, from reduced knockback to non-slippy shoes and usable items like weapon tanks and E-tanks.
Yes, thank God.
Beat the Bird unfortunately isn't a weapon in this game, but he can be purchased for one-off uses in the stages to save you from bottomless pits. And the best thing is that on normal difficulty, these items don't burn too much of a hole in your wallet. I mean, you can't go crazy after every stage, but you can buy a good few of these things.
Yes, I played on normal difficulty because screw you, I earned it.
Oh well, that doesn't matter because it's time to eat my own words. The first boss is here. But luckily, with a little patience and some charge shots, I was able to get... Oh god, what's going on? What's he doing? Oh, don't do this to me, game. Don't do this to me, game.
Yes. Just like Mega Man, the bosses themselves can use the double gear system as well.
And with this guy, yeah, it was a total pain in the ass to nail the pattern down, and he dealt a load of damage. He probably wasn't the best first pick of a Robot Master to go with, since I had no backup lives or E-tanks at this point in the game, but I finally got the pattern down and destroyed him with only a fraction of my health left. Yes!
That's how we do it in my garden.
Come on then, Mega Man 11, I'm ready for whatever you have now!
Oh, stick yourself in my mossy garden!
Jesus, this is classic Mega Man, alright. But in all honesty, for as annoying as some of those moments can be, I really enjoyed all of the bosses. Not just for the lack of totally unpredictable random spamming like in Mega Man 3's bosses, but because they test you in more ways than any Robot Master has ever done in any previous game because of their uses of the double gear system, and not just with their unique attack patterns. If you were able to use the gears but the bosses weren't, these would all be pieces of cake, but the fact that they all use your own powers against you in separate segments of the fight, almost like different forms, not only gives you more reason to use your new utilities in different ways, but also just makes the fights that much more exciting and less repetitive. And once you beat them, it's also really nice that you can actually test out the new weapon in the ideal gameplay situation immediately after acquiring it, so you don't need to waste ammo, time, or lives figuring it out in the next stage, which would have been nice with Top Man's weapon, the pisser! And it's in these moments that you can really appreciate the oh my pissing granny, you can mix the boss weapons with the power gear for ultra powerful boss weapons?
Okay, for anybody that says that the double gear system is bad in Mega Man 11, you're entitled to your own opinion.
This alone makes the double gear system one of the best additions to Mega Man, and even without the double powered boss weapons, every single one of these weapons I found to be extremely useful and badass in every sense of the word, and not only for reaching other optional hidden goodies. I found myself running out of weapon energy the most in this game since Mega Man 9, and amazingly, even with the double gears, it still doesn't make the game a cakewalk since the amount of stuff to deal with has been increased dramatically, especially in some of Wily's stages. These want you deader than dead more than any Wily stage before. Blockman's weapon is fantastic for dealing huge amounts of damage in a torrent of raining bricks, and is great for reaching those impossible upwards locations. Fuse Man's weapon not only fires upwards and downwards and sticks to a flat surface until it hits a target with two beams going opposite directions, but it also leaves a long-lasting blast radius. And speaking of blast radiuses, Blast Man's weapon may be pretty useless on its own since it takes too long to actually attack anything even if it sticks to the target, but with the power gear being utilized, it's immediate, massive, and utterly brutal. Acid Man's shield may not be the best shield in terms of attacking actual enemies, but makes makes up for it because it lasts for a certain amount of time to block any amount of projectiles you can before it runs out, and even allows you to melt through armored enemies with a powerful acid blaster attack. Tundra Man's weapon was one of my favorites. It isn't quite a screen nuke, but for how useful it is directly above and below you, it might as well be. And now that I think about it, it practically becomes a screen nuke when you use it with the power gear.
Christ almighty, Mega Man, I know that we're 11 games in and everything, but calm down, you're gonna give yourself a hernia.
Torchman's weapon is a little tricky to aim, but once you figure out the triangular upwards to downwards motion of it, it completely melts everything in its path and blows up sensitive explosive areas in milliseconds. Impact Man's weapon is fun too, since it not only gives you a mid-air dash, but can slice through smaller enemies like butter and pushes back other enemies like butter! And the Bounce Man weapon not only fires upwards and downwards, but spreads shots into 3 places and lets all of those shots bounce multiple times everywhere to clear out rooms pretty easily. Even cooler, you can not only use the pause menu or the triggers to swap between the weapons, but also cycle through them in real time with the right analog stick, making for a great shortcut if you remember which direction to point the stick for each weapon.
And before anybody asks, yeah, I did look up the boss weaknesses, and I'm not ashamed to say that whatsoever. I know that repeating the stages and experimenting is part of the course with Mega Man, but here's the thing, I'm way too busy to bother going through all of the stages over and over again until I figure out which weapons would have been best in which situations. Also, have you seen some of the boss weakness logic here? Acid destroys impact, bounce destroys fuse, blocks destroy acid. Shouldn't that be the other way around? When was the last time you heard about melting a body in a barrel full of bricks?
Not to mention, there isn't as many gotcha traps or extremely picky jumps compared to games like Mega Man 1 or 3, but this game does have them still, and the infrequency of them makes them actually all the more annoying. They stand out more because of that. You have absolutely zero chance for error on these parts. You either do it right the first time or you die. No ifs, ands, or buts. And the worst part of the game by far is this segment right before the boss door with Torchman. Even with the goddamn speed gear, this part is close to impossible unless you have enough energy for any kind of weapon to help you, or unless your aim with the basic Mega Buster is goddamn perfect and you use the speed gear at just the right sodding moment so you don't have the one-hit kill fire wipe away a life straight away. The timing is so tight, and the knockback stagger time could be the difference between life or death from the enemies that freaking swarm you. At moments like this, the strategy I was able to get into was by grabbing as many bolts as possible in the stage itself that piled up with every game over I had, which after a few minutes led me to enter the shop on a following game over, and then I had hundreds more bolts than usual, allowing me to grab a lot more lives, E-tanks, and one-use spike protectors and stuff like that.
Although be forewarned, if you decide to go to the shop and buy any more than one thing from Roll in succession, get ready for the most annoying thing you'll ever hear in your life.
Are you sure? Ta-da! Are you sure? Ta-da! Are you sure? Ta-da! Are you sure? Ta-da!
Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?
Oh god, I'm so close. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Ah, shit! But hey, at least there's a new life I can grab, and the life ran away.
Short circuit!
Well, that was a noise. What was that all about? God damn, if I didn't know any better, I'd think they found a pretty handbag in a shop.
At this point, we also discover that Wily's switch around to the dark side may have actually been because of Dr. Light's behaviour the entire time, and how he, along with fellow superiors, treated Wily for his reasonable ideas. Which is an interesting concept for a Mega Man game, absolutely, but doesn't really change the fact that Wily is still a bumbling, pathetic old fart that has tried to take over the world 11 individual times, and come on, Dr. Light might as well be Santa Claus. How could he be possibly considered evil? Have you heard him say anything recently?
We may be able to...
If there is one thing I'm grateful for Wily for, though, it's that he's decided to stop the whole wiggly eyebrow nonsense. That was just starting to get very uncomfortable. Although that doesn't excuse the fact that the Yellow Devil has returned. Yep, he's back, and my god, he doesn't just do, well, you know that, but also does all of this shit as well. Look at this. Just when you thought he couldn't get any more irritating, well, he did. However, with the speed gear on your side, the battle is a lot easier, so that's a plus. That's why he does all of this wibbly-wobbly bollocks to compensate, but overall, it was easier than all those times that Mrs. Incredible gave birth. Think about it. And this is then followed by my favourite Mega Man tradition, rematches with all the other Robot Masters. Oh no! But being blunt, I was completely used to all the different attack patterns and weaknesses by this point, so I was able to take them down with no sweat, including the Wily bosses, which are great fights and visual spectacles for sure, but still not that bad on normal difficulty. Even the final Wily capsule fight with all the double gear abilities being used isn't that big of a threat. Just stock up on E-tanks and lives before you get to this part of the game and you'll be golden and ready for Wily's, what? Plan B? Give me a break!
Spare me! I'm a helpless old man!
Alright. That's actually kind of funny. But what isn't funny is
Mega Man and Dr. Light letting Wily go for the 11th f***ing time!
Meaning the inevitable Mega Man 12 is due very soon, I'm sure.
But until that happens, I can massively recommend Mega Man 11 to anybody, honestly. Well, if you're into tough as nails 2D platformers in the first place. It's great for veterans with the level of depth and experimentation with the new mechanics, but even better for newcomers with the backstory flavor text, updated and kick-ass driving techno soundtrack, more explanation and chances to play with all the new moves, and of course the difficulty options not seen since Mega Man 2 or 10. It's not too late to jump into the series, everyone, so please, before you consider going out and getting the latest update for Fortnite, which is a really stupid name in the first place, you might as well call it weekly, please consider picking up Mega Man 11. It's a little pricey if you want to just go through the campaign once, but the additional challenge modes and endless replayability of it makes it worth it twice over. You know, this was the most positive way a video of mine has ended in quite some time, now that I think about it. When was the last time that happened?
That's a good question.